It's an issue around us having...
Rope over it. Yeah, no, we'll go over the top. I'm tired of it. I'd be terrible to lose it.
Do you want to throw it over?
Yeah. Okay, then we'll see you later on. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Did you want it underneath here, Michael? Or there?
It's a feral bit of cloth. This is shocking, Jamie. You've deliberately left it over. It's like a half-dressed hippie. Bloody ferals. Can't even cover up a coffin. Look at it. Bloody raggedy hands. Look at this bit of feral spit stuff. Unbelievable. Look at that. Beautiful thing. I can...
Just flapping.
Let's go. Beautiful.
Oh, hold on, got to make a movie. Come on.
Girl who's running in place of Kelly, her husband's involved. Oh, they're fun. Yeah, so there might be a few of those guys lose their seat, which would be very exciting. And so Howard's defending the man, saying, you know, you can't fault the wife of the husband's seat, but she's tainted. And all these local Chinese and Arabs and nations saying we can't have say the whole election if you did it right away. You could swing the whole election, one election. It's just reminding people they know it, but it's typical. Hey, this is
Get the beer out of the shop.
Tree walk for children, sea walk. It's happening in Nimbin on the 13th of December, a sea walk. Where they got their children from grade 6 and 7 or something, hand out rainforest trees and things.
Yeah.
Sure.
Watch the little...
Far out.
Isn't it beautiful with Gilbert's Diana on top? It just, I thought, how's it going to be? The friend of our funeral on Friday, we've been painting the coffin.
Wow. Shall we put it down here now?
I want you to see the line.
Yeah, let's put it on the table here. Else,
Oh.
we'll put it down here.
Oh,
Shall we put it down here?
Yeah. Oh, the chucker.
Yeah.
Beautiful, the chucker. The cock. The cock's spotty. Look at that side, isn't that pretty? Oh, I just think this side is just gorgeous. It's like heaven.
Oh, it's all pink and lovable, isn't it?
Isn't it?
And the pea stuff
Look at the line. Oh,
and the clouds.
yeah, I want to see the lining. I'm so happy. I did the... See that? And there's even a little bit of a painting there. Oh.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, it's comfy.
Yeah. I was wondering if you wanted to put a pillow in, but you know, I think
No,
that's
no,
nice.
because I'm giving his pillow to his daughter.
And it's gold around here. I've got gold around here. Isn't that neat?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, God.
Look, the love hearts underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gilbert put love hearts.
Yeah. Beautiful. And these are, well, I had to get zip things from the Emporium. They said they're all sold out. Like that. And I said, oh, I only need 12 for chicken coffin because I cut the ropes off. Now I've got to put them back. And they went, we could give you some of ours. And gave me sort of 11. Funny what, I think they bought out their own stock. Look at the lining. Oh, far out. That's great. I think the lining's the cleverest thing.
That's beautiful.
And it's old hemp, you know, it's been
Yeah,
it's
that's
been,
old.
I washed it and stuff.
Old and soft. She sure has. Everybody has.
Oh, it's got a uniform. No, that's the horse because it's...
The horse blanket won't
Did you
fit.
get the back? The back is beautiful. That's Helen did all these beautiful flowers.
Now what I've got is a crocheted blanket that Faye Scherf made.
And this is the...
That's going in now.
that's just a religious man, really, was he?
No,
So
he had
wanted to put
very
in the
firm
crosses. I
beliefs,
thought the
but
spiral was about, you know, the essence of life. And one of those, isn't it?
Opposite of lines cross.
He's going, well, he's...
and I'll tell you what,
I just
Marley,
like, if you
I'm
take
going
a
to
quest,
fill up
just
my
run
camera
with
today
skateboard
with
wheels
film and
underneath it.
everything while I'm in there.
Just roll me
And
along.
maybe I might do a deal on Friday or something.
Just a lead with wheels on it.
Alright.
Push me to the hole and put a
If they're not maybe through, it takes a little while until they get it worked out.
It's going to be different lighting because you're under the umbrella as well. Umbrella.
No talking. Everything you say will be recorded.
Okay, stay with me.
We're proud to be here today for him and seeing him off proper into the next one. As we all know, the Plantem will never die. Someone will step in his shoes and carry through.
It's all about stopping injustice, and we're going to keep it going, don't you worry.
Keep it up! Stopping injustice.
Plantem! Go the Plantem!
Goes to toast.
Goes to toast! The Plantem never dies!
Welcome to the meeting place. Oh, Nibdara Bajalan. It means welcome to the meeting place.
Pull up there where he is.
Put him in there, and then we'll drive him up.
No, stay there where he is, mate.
Right where he is.
Stay right there. Be fine.
Right there, Bob.
Okay.
Now once again for the Plantem, our brother George. For everything that he stood for and still stands for. May you cross over into the next one and have many years of peace and happiness there.
Go the bun, George!
Hip, hip!
And again. And again. Thank you, brother George.
Yeah, but the box is
What's that, a left turn or something when someone's amazing.
Is that all right with everybody?
That's good.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending here today. I don't really know how to start this, so I'll just do what I've got here. Almost nearly never. In the memory of the thousands and thousands of brothers and sisters of similar dispositions who found themselves in similar situations, we almost nearly never made it, but some did. And John Kenneth Taylor was one of the few who did. Who survived to ask, how does one forget, and how does one forgive when one cannot forget? John Kenneth Taylor, born 18th of July 1941, year of the snake, or 20th of December 2007, age 66. Born in Fremantle, Perth, Western Australia, married 4 times, at least 15 children plus a couple of extras that we know of along the way.
Yeah.
Grandchildren, tell you, there's got to be a fair few of them around too. He was affectionately known as Chicken George and the Plantem.
Yeah.
Oui.
Yeah.
You say you're a man, you understand, but you don't. Walking into the door, told my brother, don't hurt her.
Bloke called Wally Sherman took him in and gave him a room. Intractable prisoner number 2 was no more. I'm sure half his sayings come out of jail. One's like, if you let fear in, it'll take you over. Another is never give up, never give in, and you might just be okay. In jail, his nickname was the Kid. You had to be tough to survive. One day a big crim said to him, give it up, lad. If you shot anyone, you'd be the first to call an ambulance. This changed his attitude and thus his life. At 25 and a free man, he got into work labouring. He married the first of his 4 wives, but it lasted only 2 months. He bought a new house near the abattoirs, which was close to the stables. He started out in the racing fraternity, mucking out the stables, putting in the hard work. It wasn't long before, and I've lost a page here somewhere, you'll just have to excuse me. No, we don't. Got a half a page. It wasn't too long before he was on the horse's back. He loved the punt, and one of his sons is a successful jockey. Matt Pumper, we've won a few dollars on you over the years too. 1969 saw him in Western Australia, working at Port Hedland pub. A short stint there and back to Melbourne for more track work at Ray Oliver's stables. Was made of meat dot. Marry and have 3 children, Samantha being one of them. The other 2, Gregory and Frank. The marriage wasn't to last, and in the winter of '79 he found himself at the caravan park in Bundaberg, Queensland. Bundy had a small zoo in the park next door. Depression led him to liberate a couple of monkeys from their cage in broad daylight. Before he'd finished the job, Constable Grunter, who he was later to impersonate, arrived. He was arrested and locked up once again, just like the monkeys had liberated. George held a number of jobs over the years. A couple of note was with the Moorabbin City Council, Victoria, where he rose from dog catcher to bylaws officer. Then Cox City Council as senior ordnance and prosecuting officer, a parking case. He had to wear a uniform and book people. He didn't like that, so it's time to move on. 82 saw him give up the grog and marry for a 3rd time. George and Coral Lee had a son, Richard Louis. The marriage lasted 4 years. Apart from the punt, George loved the footy. Being brought up in Tigerland, Richmond accounted for that. From 1982 to 1987, he was the team manager of the mighty Whoopie Blues, the Woolgoolga Australian Football Club. Premiers 1982, 83 and 85, runners-up 84, 86 and 87. Played one senior game and one reserve game. The country boy from Whoopi had a bag of purple heads, one of his songs he liked. He lived at the Woolgoolga Caravan Park for 8 years in a mauve bus. For the 10 years that followed, he was back with the show, travelling extensively around Australia. Travelling to me is like digesting a giant vitamin tablet. I immediately felt a sense of freedom. When my time comes to ride on ahead, I hope it is on the track, for there I will feel free, unencumbered. Now, I've got a funny feeling I skipped a page somewhere because I didn't actually tell you how he started with the show. So, I should have left these all pages together, shouldn't I? Well, it doesn't. He actually met the bloke, his name was Max, at a Todd River near Alice Springs. He was out of work. He was feeling fairly depressed, and Max threw him some silver and gave him a job. Taught him about the show and the life on the road being a carny. Taught him that the main thing of being on the road is to be honest. Honesty is first and foremost, and George has lived by that ever since. Here we go, the page I was missing. One of the jobs that George loved was being a showy carny. 1987, on the banks of the Todd River near Alice, he met showman Max Lorry, his sister Jean and her husband George. His old George Needham gave him the silver and gave him the star. They were to become great friends and taught George that honesty is first and foremost. He loved the spruiking. At a show in Mackay in '93, he sold 126,000 $1 tickets in 10 weeks. I don't know, there's a misprint, but that really seems a hell of a lot of tickets. 10 weeks.
Misprint.
For that he earned himself $3 grand, a hell of a lot of fun, and some very good friends. George still worked with the show as late as 2002, 2003 up in Cairns, where he normally sort of migrated up for the winter. Cairns City Caravan Park holds fond memories of George, taking the Plantem to the people. He loved to let people know where he was from and his message, say no to drugs. In 2004 saw him marry for a 4th time to Cassie. With Cassie came her 2 lovely daughters, Emma and Lucy. I'll just add a couple of stories from the embassy, as I'm sure future speakers will add to it. Chick and George loved hats. One day he found an old black felt hat at the Ebor tip. It had a colourful hippie band with a feather in it. I was stuck with the name Chicken by the locals. It fitted the bill as far as dealing went, and had a nice ring to it. Now you know where his name Chicken came from. A note of interest, in 1990, now I find this actually a bit hard to believe, but he was the Coffs Harbour Racing Pigeon Champion. 2 years. Takes all sorts, eh? In '96, they'd just finished mowing the lawns when he switched on the radio and it said there was a cannabis festival called Mardi Gras. It was on for 5 days in a place called Nimbin. So I was off for a 2-week holiday. There he was to meet Bob Hopkins, Sir Bob, and Michael Balderstone. The rest is history, hemp history. He started at the Hemp Embassy as a volunteer, a cleaner. Start with the toilets as usual, and worked his way into the chicken we love, respect and honour today.
Yeah.
Another time was the time the local credit union refused to accept our donation money for banking. because it was a bit dusty and dirty. We put incense on the tin, etc. What else could we do but fill the sink with a bit of soapy water and wash all the coinage? We're just washing the money in the embassy again. Another, the time the TAB closed. So George wrote a letter to those concerned stating that Nimbin had 2 laundromats. One washed clothes. Could you please reopen the other? The TAB was returned. March 2003 saw the Plantem bitten by a death adder. 3 steps from his van and bang, off to the hospital. It very nearly killed him, but he survived. One of his sayings was, as the Plantem I contributed to society, but as a youth I siphoned from society. That I have lived an exciting life. I've had a full life. At the start of this eulogy I quoted Chicken by saying, how does one forgive when one cannot forget? George survived. George found the answer. You cannot forget, but you can forgive. It might sound a bit corny, but the answer is pretty simple. Cassie, the answer was love.
Cassie.
The one thing that was missing from his life. Buenos Dias, my friend. Go with the wind. Hemp hemp, goodbye. I'd like to ask any other speakers that want to come up here and say a few words. At the end of this next song, please feel free. Thank you all for attending. I'd like to thank Elspeth and Gilbert for doing such a lovely job with his coffin. Helen? My apologies. Shoot me later.
And Gilbert.
I'm sorry, Helen. I got Gilbert right. Thanks to the Gunja Fairies for coming in all their colour. It really made the parade. And once again I'd like to thank everybody for coming here as a mark of respect for Kenneth John Taylor, Chicken George, the Plantem.
Everyone cry. Anyway, it's working. I got a million George stories. He, you know, I liked his balls. I loved the way that he just had a go. He lived with such courage. He had such a go. I too know too many stories from his childhood. You know, they make me cry. And I love that he never gave up. Who said that? He never gave up. He was so fucking gonna hang in there forever. 2 quick stories. So we go down to the Olympics, you know, they're going to have the Olympics in Sydney and we know our hemp Olympics makes them look shit. So we go down there with the big joint before the Olympics and we had this fantastic day throwing bongs and the cops came on bicycles and it ended up, you know, who can hit the cop with the bong? And they were really cool about it. And then I see this, you know, we're in that big park near the, I don't know Sydney well, we're in this big park where the Aboriginal camp was before the Olympics. They were all scared of them. Suddenly, there's 20 mounted police there, and George and I look at each other and think, fuck, what's going on, George? What are they're gonna charge us, you know? And then all these youth started appearing, and it was Spenos and that Reclaim the Streets rally. And they weren't allowed to have a motorised vehicle. So they had this sort of old Volkswagen without a roof, and they were pulling it on a big rope. Looked like a hemp rope, I tell you. And I tell you, I don't know how it happened, but it happened really quickly. As the parade's about to go off, this huge parade, hundreds of people, these kids grab 4 steel posts out of the gardens, stick them in this car, and stick the joint inside it, prop the joint up and held the joint. And they're off down George Street, pulling this thing on the rope, thousands of kids and drums, and the cops didn't have a chance. They're out in front. They didn't see all this happen. They're leading the show. And George sees his moment, mate, and he's jumped up on top of the joint and he's riding it all the way. And it was just one of the best moments of his life, I know. He rode it all the way down George Street, the town hall. He just loved it. Always remember it. And the other story is Pete mentioned up in the Cairns Caravan Park, which was sort of, he did a bit of business up there. And I'd say to him, well, how did it work for you, George? This is not for the media. Anyway, there were thousands of Japanese that would all come in there. This is how the story went. And they all had their little tents and no one could speak English. So at just about sort of sunset, George would roll this really huge joint. And he'd just walk around through all the tents. He'd walk around through all the tents, puffing away, trail of smoke, back to his little tent where all the packets were. And they'd all just follow him. He just cleaned up. I don't know. I love that he lived with such sort of gusto. You know, he had balls and he just lived it, and he was a stalwart of the Hemp Embassy, and we would not be there like we are today without George.
Yeah.
Hemp and Parade.
Hemp and Parade.
Cass, you're a fantastic chick, and George loves you. You know what I mean? We're here to farewell George, but Cass, our heart goes out to you because you're a fantastic chook. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right? Yeah. You know what
I mean? Message from Grace. She wanted me to tell you, George, that she wanted me to say I love you, and so do I. You came into our family and just adopted Grace as this kind of 1-year-old who had trouble walking, and just opened your heart out. You're such a kind man. Anyway, after George died, I thought I must have been partially channeling. I didn't catch the tune to the first kind of bit, but it's actually the closing song of the Roy Rogers show. And I always saw Chicken as a kind of a cowboy, you know, for some reason. Anyway, it goes like this, and then I can sing the verse, I think. Happy trails to you till we meet again. Some trails are happy ones, others are blue. It's the way you ride the trail that counts. Here's a happy one for you. And then, happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Thank you.
Before we close up this segment, is there anyone else that wants to come up and say a few words?
Thank you. What a guy. He's certainly done things for me over my life here, and I'm so grateful to George, and he's been there for me always, and he's a fellow brother of the Rainbow people here. And I think the funniest time I've ever seen George was in one of the Mardi Grasses, where he came in on the horse, and he was just toting on this joint, and the street was full of people, and all of a sudden he just gone, and the horse took off, and he's just gone, oh! And it was really funny, man. It was just, he handled it really well, because it went off. He handled it really well, being bareback. I know he done a good job. I mean, I love the fella. Thank you all for coming, man. Thank you. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you. Brother Rusty could hold the umbrella for me, I'd appreciate it, friend Rusty. With my last breath, I'd like to say something for George, because I truly believe he was one of the most genuine characters that has
has been a resident of Nimbin. And I also believe and believe in practicing. Every day I feel strong enough to go to town what George expressed were the true values of Nimbin. And those were represented also, funnily enough, by the character of the Phantom. Anonymity as a bush grower, tribalism, representing the little people, meaning the pygmy Bada, and with the true tribute to Cassie, his last love. One of the things I wrote a few years ago, prior to his relationship with Cassie, was how George had found, the Plantem had found a romance in his life, and she was a mountain girl. And this mountain girl has really, she spontaneously picked up on this unpublished story that came out of the ethers to me, and it's a true tribute to the way the universe picks up on thoughts and wavelengths that are out there without them having to be written or published. And I think the other things that George believed in are the diversity of marijuana and the natural properties and qualities that it provides for us, both and working with the natural environment, taking risks, because I think a life that focuses on fostering one's own life and not taking risks is an unfulfilled life. And I haven't had smoke for a few weeks of anything, because I too have had a bit of a brush with death, but it wasn't jumping on a death adder, but I wouldn't mind playing some David Bowie song at my funeral too, or having it played for me. It would be more like putting out fire with gasoline, because I was shaking up the hash on Spider Bite, and it's testing the amount of oxygen our heart needs, you know, when it's really, really pumping, and I need just about all the oxygen that my heart needs to survive now. But I'll have maybe my last smoke for George, but I still believe in all of the many qualities of the herb superb, which aren't only obtained by smoking it. And my final images of George are wearing that tatty old lime green faded cloth that nobody else other than George could fit into, that Michael couldn't fit into, wasn't fitted too well, and that he was the only true character that was genuine enough to represent what the values of waving the marijuana flag like this in the front of the hemp embassy. Thanks, brothers and sisters.
May the ancestors of this land guide by words of praise and gratitude for George. Yeah. When I first met him, he soon passed on his biography, so I knew the depth of his character. I knew the cruelty he had experienced in the jails. I knew his courage. But what I saw before me was his humility. Right? It was the kindness of people. First to respond, yeah? If someone was hurting, it was George, because he knew how much it had hurt, yeah? Not being loved, being punished instead. And he made it art. And there he was in the Hemp Embassy daily, a living art piece, yeah? Fully alive, fully George. One story of his kindness, yeah? He fell in love with my dog. Remember I had a dog called Jennifer? A white Maremma, yeah? She used to come behind me and wear a red biscuit. People loved Jennifer and George in particular. I used to park her in the back of the hemp embassy with George's full approval. He'd come out with the water and treat her. Anyway, one day I was racing past the hemp embassy with Jennifer on board peacebus.com, and I just had to pick something up, right? And I double parked outside the embassy, ran inside to get it. And when I came out, I rushed straight in the cab and drove off. And I got to Lismore and realised I didn't have the dog on board. And I was so stoned, because that is what had happened in the hemp embassy. I couldn't remember where she was. I had to track back through Nimbin through the day, checking every place, going out as far as almost the Sphinx Rock. I had to go back to Sphinx Rock, and then eventually I came back into Nimbin, and there's George. He had seen her in the van and thought, how could Graham do this? Taken responsibility out of kindness and created chaos in my life. I'm sorry. This is what I would think about George. The way he chose his words, the way he said it, yeah? There's poetry in it. And as if he listened to people, yeah, he truly listened, as if it was their dying croak, yeah? As if it was the son listening to the father, last words. This is the way to listen to the friend, yeah? That we die before we die, into our friend, into the friend, into the earth. All blessings on George and all of you. May you all be happy.
Is there anybody else who'd like to get up and say any words before we take Chicken out and plant him?
Paul could sing a song, yeah? For George? Yeah, and send us off. Hey.
I just want to say thank you, George, for all your words and advice and everything through the time I've known you. You've meant a lot to me and my family, and you will never be forgotten.
Once you were a rock, and you practiced patience for 1,000,000 years. Then you were a tree, and you lent an ear to each and every tear. Once you were a bird, and you flew away from anything that you might fear. Now you are a man. Come and sit beside the fire and talk with me, and we'll talk about the rock, and we'll talk about the tree, and we'll talk about the bird that flew so free. Ha, 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 ha. Laugh about the dream inside of you. Ha, 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 ha. Laugh about the dream inside of me. Once you were a deer, so very shy you ran away from any sound that shattered here. Then you were a brook, and you babbled on and on for 4,000,000 good years. Once you were a lion, and you roared right out for all your kingdom to adore. Now you are a star. Come and shine with me, you know we'll shine 1,000,000 years, and we'll talk about the deer, and we'll talk about the brook, and we'll talk about the lion and how he looked. And we'll talk about the rock, and we'll talk about the tree, and we'll talk about the bird that flew so free. Ha, 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 ha. Laugh about the dream inside of you. Ha, 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 ha. Laugh about the dream inside of me.
seconds to find the...
Yay! Hello, Cam, Cassie, and friends and extended family. Yeah, it's so important, and what a treasure to actually have known George and spent time with him. A lot of respect. Yeah, we only had one grouch fight at each other, and then we healed that the first day of volunteering at the hemping. I was asked to sing a song, but I've got a special song, but that's for the family because I'm so amazing I'm standing here. But I'd like to share a little bit of it if I can remember it. I met him at the Hemp Embassy, green and proud. He stood, flag in hand, representing medicinal herb and hemp. George is his name, and I love him so. There's more to this verse, and I'll let you know. Love you.
I'll just take one more reading from his book. An Ordinary Bloke. Well, someone asked the other day if I was straight or I was gay. And I'm awfully glad they took the time to ask, because I might be Jack or I might be Jill. I've been at the bottom and the top of the hill. I've even drove a car up Bulli Pass. So for those of you left wondering if I'm made of lace or made of string, there's one thing that I hope you'll understand. That when they handed out the bits, they never gave me any tits. And so, I'm just an ordinary bloke. Thank you, I'm just an ordinary bloke. George was never an ordinary bloke. He was too humble.
Oh, wow. Well, good to see everybody here. I went and visited Brother a couple of weeks back there, and he asked me if I'd turn up there and say a few words for him to see him through to the next track proper. I think just by being here, and for the life that Brother lived, as I said to him there and then, I said, you know you've earned it, my brother. You've been here, you've done your best. You didn't hurt nobody that didn't need to. You did your best. You've earned your track there, brother. You'll go through safe and strong. I think one thing that might put him through there safe and strong is a few words from our other brothers here on this land and the spirit of it, and how the spirit of this land permeates right through everybody within this area that lives in it. And it certainly did with our brother George, and he was happy to sit there and have it come out of him in Nimbin and enjoy his days here. So, yeah, Brother Michael, I want to give a bit of a rattle on the didgeridoo here. And Brother Burry, and a song there as well from some of the sisters to finish off with. So if everybody said their words and that, I think the best way we could send Brother George through, I think, is say three little words that I think Brother, as we all know, didn't grow up, probably wouldn't have heard a lot of it, but them three little words, I love you, brother. From all of us, Brother George, we love you. Now we'll carry you through, so for the next one, brother, you'll be right there with all our mob. Good on you, brother. Deadly.
Just from the Bales family or from us, this didgeridoo is a special one. Doesn't get played often, just for special people. I would like to say, Wanjo Yabba, Yunu Dungai. The translation of that is, I'll see you later, brother. We got to go now.
George, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ramon.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm all right.
It's really an honour for you to ask me to speak on behalf of the Hemp Embassy.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy to be here, and so are all of us.
Yes, you seem to have a happy crew.
Yeah, and we're glad to be here. So.
Okay, we can only hope that our little talk will leave us all knowing a little more.
That's the purpose of it.
That's the whole purpose of it. And honesty prevails?
Yeah.
Okay. Hemp hemp hooray.
Cool. Yeah, I want to just ask you to tell a little bit about yourself, what you're representing and yeah, what?
Well, my position in Nimbin is that I've been here this time.